Hello, Cambly learners. My name is Cuau. Today we're going to be studying nouns. To make things a little bit easier, I'm going to explain the different types of nouns that exists, what they are, and when to use them. To start things off, I'm going to talk about the nouns that we use the most. They actually have very simple, easy names. We have common nouns, proper nouns, and concrete nouns. To understand nouns, we have to remember something very important, and that is that every sentence has a subject. In any case, sentences can also have objects or indirect objects, but we're always talking about something. The who or the what in a sentence. Common nouns are very simply ways to talk about things in general. We might say country, bridge, or car. Right? Things that we might see every day. Common things. That's the easiest way to remember them. Concrete nouns are things that we can only touch physically, that we can only interact with on a physical, solid, let's say, level. For example, we can touch a car, we can touch a cat, we can touch a person, but we can't touch happiness or sadness. So concrete nouns is just a way of distinguishing these nouns that we can actually touch and physically interact with. I also mentioned proper nouns, and proper nouns are the nouns that we use when we're talking about something very specific or particular. To make things easier, think of things that have a name. When something has a name, we call it a proper noun. So things like New York, London, or Tokyo are proper nouns because they have a name, and there's only one of them. We're being very specific. We can also say that about people like John or Steve or Mary. Let's try to make a sentence with some of these nouns, whether it's common, proper, or concrete. We can say something as simple as, let's say, Mary likes flowers. Mary is the subject, and Mary is a proper noun. She is a person. She has a name. Flowers are common things, things that we see every day, so we can very easily call them either common nouns or concrete nouns. Once you've mastered those more basic nouns, we're going to move on to those that are a little bit more difficult. We're going to talk about abstract, compound, and collective nouns. An abstract noun, like the name says it, refers to something that is not exactly physical and that we have to think of in a more abstract way. Let's think of stress, happiness, anger, or danger. They are nouns, and we use them as if they were objects, but obviously they're not objects that we can actually touch, so they're very, very different from concrete or common nouns. Many people confuse them with verbs or with adjectives because many of these have similar words. Think of the word stress. We have stress, the noun, the object. For example, I feel stress. But we also have other things like stressful or stressing. They are either the adjective or verb form of a word, and we have to be very careful not to confuse them. Very simply put, compound nouns are one word that is made up of two individual words that has a different meaning. Think of the word seafood. We all know what the sea is. It's a large body of water. And when we say sea, we can obviously imagine the sea, right? When we say food, of course, we know what food is, and we can imagine food in general. However, when we put these two words together, seafood, it actually transforms the meaning and it makes it something a little bit more specific. Seafood, like fish or lobster. And there are other examples of compound nouns. Think of airport, nightmare. Okay. There is a very, very long list of compound nouns, and like I said, they always come from two words put together to make a new word that has a very different meaning. What compound nouns can you think of? Now, whether you know it or not, you actually use collective nouns all the time, whenever you're referring to a group of people or a group of things. When you say my family, for example, it is actually a collective noun because you're not saying my mother, my brother, my father, my sister, my son, my wife, etc. You're making them all fit into one group, my family, and that is a collective noun. You can also say things like the audience, the team, the school even, when you're referring to a group of people. Now, let's try to make some sentences with these other more advanced nouns. Let's try to use a compound noun and a collective noun, or an abstract noun. I can think of the sentence, my family all had the same nightmare, so they were feeling a lot of stress. Okay. The first, my family, is a collective noun that refers to a group. Then we talk about something that they experienced, something that they had, which is a nightmare, a bad dream. It's not usual for people to have the same nightmare, so they felt stress, which is an abstract noun, something that we can't physically touch. But you try. What kind of sentence can you make with some of these nouns? Now that you understand the basic nouns and some nouns that are a little bit more advanced and difficult, we're going to move on to possessive nouns. These nouns are used to explain ownership or possession. We add an apostrophe and an S to whoever owns an object. Okay? We can say the teacher's book, and we are talking about a book that belongs to the teacher. It is either his property or it is in his possession. They're very easy to construct. You have a noun, you add an apostrophe and an S, and there you have it. You have a possessive noun. There is a small exception to the rule. When we have a plural noun that ends with an S, instead of adding an apostrophe S, we only add the apostrophe, that little line. So if we're talking about parents, for example, because it is a plural noun and it ends with an S, when we're using this, we only add an apostrophe. By this point, you've surely noticed that nouns can be kind of tricky and confusing, and sometimes the category isn't very clear. Sometimes a noun can be in one or two categories at the same time. That is fine. Don't get confused by this. It just means that a noun can be useful for being concrete and common, for example. Or it can be also concrete and collective. It's not a problem that some of these nouns fit into two categories, but you just have to know that these names and these types of nouns have their own special characteristics. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Cambly yet, Cambly is an online platform that you can use to speak to native tutors all around the world, just like me. We can help you with your IELTS training. We can help you prepare for interviews. We can just help you practice natural conversation, you name it. At the touch of a button, you can connect to us via your smartphone, your tablet, or your computer. You can even reserve a class with me using the link below. So, I really hope you enjoyed it. Remember, like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel and our other social media. And I hope to see you soon on Cambly. Bye!